Okay.
Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Steve Oliver. I'm on the board of trustees for Antioch and also one of the co-leaders of this Boston area chapter, which we're still in the throes of trying to get it up and running. This is only the second gathering that we've had, both of them virtual. Earlier in the year, we were able to spend time with our new president, Jane Fernandes, and we're thrilled today to have Brian Norman with us, who is our new vice president for academic affairs. This is a critically important role, one that had been taken on by various faculty members over the years. This is the chief academic officer, the person that sort of oversees the development and direction of sort of all things academic for Antioch. It also is ushering in or represents a new era of stability for Antioch. So again, we are more than thrilled to have him with us. We also have our new director for alumni engagement with us, Tristan. And after we spend some time, Brian and I having conversation for maybe 15 minutes or so, we want to get right into question and answer and see what kinds of things you want to ask Brian about, and then we can just have it as a free-flowing kind of a dialogue, and I'll facilitate as necessary. So again, welcome, Brian. Just to jump right in, standard kind of first question, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what drew you to Antioch.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen, and thanks everyone for being here on a weekday night. And as Stephen knows, I was most recently in Boston for the last few years. So for this first virtual engagement with alumni chapters, there's a little bit of a homecomingness there. But just tell me you a little bit about myself and what brought me to Antioch. So I'm a first generation college student. I'm from a small town in Oregon. And my world opened up thanks to a liberal arts education, and it opened up to paths and possibilities I didn't even know were available to anyone, let alone to me and someone like me in my background. And I entered college. I was going to be a biochemistry major. I was going to save the planet by fixing the ozone layer. And I left college on the way to graduate school, where I was interested in questions of the American Democratic Project and especially experiences where it fell short, and ended up moving into the academic world and becoming a scholar and teacher of the relationship between literature and social justice, and specializing in American literature and African American literature. But along the way, in my experience with the liberal arts is where the true story was. It took me to Cuba, it took me to West Africa, it took me to summers in the chemistry lab for a while, and my world and my life is transformed in ways that I didn't even know were possible. And so as I moved into academic leadership, I've been in a number of different kinds of institutions, came up by way of especially leadership around faculty affairs and diversity, and have done a lot of work with organizational change, working with shared governance. And over the course of my career, I've found that I'm really drawn to mission-driven organizations, college universities that have a sense of themselves and a reason why they exist. And I find myself in roles when those institutions are asking really big and hard questions about their mission and trying to get it right, or trying to get it more right. So at those hinge moments of institutional change. Most recently, I was dean at Simmons University Women's-Centered Institution in Boston, one of the founding deans of one of 4 colleges. I was the dean of the Gwen Ifill College of Media Arts and Humanities. So I was there for a while, and during the pandemic, I, like probably most of you and like most of your friends and colleagues, I asked really big questions of myself about who am I and what do I value, what kind of work am I good at? What kind of work do I want to do? And where do I want to do that work? So it was one of those big inflection points in my own career. And, you know, I recommitted to my own sense of mission, which is that I'm committed to the transformative power of liberal education and its civic mission. And I'm really committed to making sure that that kind of education is available to the next generation, and more specifically available to the kinds of students from the kinds of backgrounds that might not otherwise find themselves at those liberal education institutions. And I looked around a lot, and then this place called Antioch that I knew about, but had sort of lost track of. I saw that it was attempting something really big. And Antioch is a place that has a really special mission, a really important history in American higher education. And the more I read about it and the more I looked, I confirmed that it has a ton of heart, not a heck of a lot of resources, and no guarantee of success. And that's my kind of challenge. So sign me up. And then when I got to campus, I just saw the way in which the campus exudes a sense of possibility and enthusiasm, and a sense of people reaching really far for the kind of work they want to do and the kind of change they want to make in the world. And talk to a lot of people, including Stephen, although that one was virtual. And with having hired Jane, as Stephen said, it seemed like Antioch is finding its stride, and it's at a really neat moment where it can move from reopening and reinventing and reassuring itself that it has a future, to getting to the work of building that future. So it's a really exciting time to join. And here I am.
Yeah. So some of what you said is a great segue to the next question I had. You know, for all of us as alumni, we have the Antioch of our memory, right? And whatever, point at which we were there, whatever era. And so I'm wondering, as you've landed in Antioch, what are you learning? What are you observing? What is this place that you've come to? And could you describe it for all of us who obviously were familiar with Antioch, but not the Antioch of fall of 2022?
Yeah. I'm still very much trying to stay in active listening phase. And as I said, I'm entering community through story. And I'm finding, people experience Antioch through their memory and their story. And Antioch has some of the most engaged alumni that I've ever encountered. I mean, it's why Antioch is still in existence. So I decided to come to Antioch. I snuck back to campus just a couple days after my campus visit. I'm sort of incognito. It happened to be during graduation, and I took my husband and we surreptitiously looked around, and we could feel the sense of possibility and mission. And I stood in front of the Horseman Monument and thought about what kind of work I want to do on my short time on Earth. And so that was my own private engagement with that history. And then one of my first experiences with the campus was through reunion weekend, and the whole weekend was so fascinating and such fun, and a good opportunity to learn stories, as you said, Stephen, from those different generations, because I am finding that there are patterns that are generational. But what I found so moving, and the reason I wanted to go and fly there to participate in the reunion, was the funeral for the student union building. And it was just such a moving and smart way to gather as a community, to share story, to honor this space of community, and share the different ways that people's lives had come into focus and purpose in that space, and also mourn it and mark it and find a way to move on. And so I've really been listening to the ways in which we can honor and build on that which came before, and honor the history that has always been progressive and changing, by figuring out what Antioch needs to be now for this generation into the future. So you asked me what I'm learning about Antioch in fall of 22. I am learning that, oh my gosh, there's a lot going on. And as Stephen knows, I've been trying to find the language to capture what I'm learning. And I'm experiencing Antioch as a small place of abundance. There is so much going on, and there are a bounty of things on offer for our students. We have wonderful faculty who have tons of talent and knowledge in various areas of expertise. We've got all these amazing places on campus that other campuses do not have. A sustainable working farm that is feeding the entire community, that's also part of a sustainable energy system, both geothermal and solar, so that the campus itself is living out its values of sustainability. It's got a justice-oriented center named after Coretta Scott King. Who else can get to say that? Only one other place. So it's also this campus that is a really unique place to come and be in community that is actively thinking about community.
Mhm.
And it's important for me to frame it as a place of abundance, because I'm also encountering a lot of fatigue and a lot of folks who are really worried about and mourning that which Antioch was or could be or can't be anymore. And so there's a lot of deficit-oriented thinking that I'm encountering. And so part of what I'm trying to do is reframe people's thinking to move toward asset-based, what we are, what we have, and how we can become a full version of ourselves. And I can talk to you more about an emerging academic vision that's coming from that. But my initial impression is that it is this place of bounty and abundance. And I'm also finding that it's a place of belonging. So the individuals that I'm meeting, especially the students who are finding themselves to Antioch, and we need more of them, but those who are finding their way there are folks who didn't experience belonging elsewhere and had a sense of being an outsider or not having a full place in the world as it is. And they're coming to Antioch and experiencing belonging. We have almost half of our students are students of color. We have noted that over 80% of our students identify as LGBTQIA in some way, which is astonishing. Almost a third of our students identify as trans or gender nonconforming or gender non-binary. And there's this really beautiful space of community and belonging across difference that I'm seeing blooming in real time, and wondering how we can build from there.
Mhm. I love to hear you talk about Antioch. I love the language that you're developing to talk about, this idea of abundance, this idea of asset-based. I wanted to just give some time for you to share anything about sort of an emerging vision, of course, understanding the brief period of time that you've been.
Yeah, I am a quick study, but yes,
Yeah.
it's still brief.
And in our conversations, I've especially appreciated your ability to really distill out, here are some particular areas of strength that can be, that we can build upon. So anything you'd like to offer around that before
Sure.
we go to questions?
Well, I'll offer two broad things. One, historically, Antioch is and should be really proud of itself as originating co-op as a model of putting the liberal arts in action and preparing students for purposeful work and lives of meaning. I say it that way because I know that there's questions about what does that mean in 2022. That is a place of pride. And I'm actively working with Brooke Blackman-Bryan, who's the dean of co-op, to think about ways that we can frame the work and get the right language so that it resonates with the concerns and interests of current students and their parents, because we can knock it out of the park in terms of the way that we are already where most colleges of higher ed are trying to get to, which is fully embedding workplace experience and global experience into the academic student experience, so that people are constantly thinking about what meaningful work looks like, and then getting to have some experience and deciding if that's the right fit for them and develop a sense of purpose. Because this generation while they're incredibly economically sensitive and debt averse and want some reassurances that they will end up being successful with their first job, they also want to know that those jobs have meaning and that they will have a sense of purpose, and we can help them distinguish between a first job and a last job, a first job and a career. And that's all embedded in the stuff that we know how to do and do really well. So that we are just working on fortifying, especially post-COVID, as students can go back out in the world. And then on the more traditional academic side, I think most folks here on this call or should know that, about 4 years ago, Antioch moved to a single self-designed major model. And I'm still learning the history of how that decision came to be, but very generally, it's how I'm hearing the story is sort of through a deficit-based approach of, well, we couldn't do all of these other things that other institutions can do. So we can't offer these 10 or 15 or 20 majors that other institutions are doing at our size and scale. So we'll create a self-designed major and give students the freedom and the license to put things together. And I think that is a good starting place. And now I'm hoping that we can move toward think about it not as what we can't offer, but how is that the right space for what we can offer and can offer well and be a full version of Antioch. And so I'm listening for how to move from really high quality ingredients, doing all sorts of really wonderful things, wonderful faculty, wonderful classes, wonderful assets. And instead of just saying, hey, students, there's the pantry with all these wonderful ingredients, can we also have the responsibility of saying, and we've kitchen tested some of these ingredients into some recipes or combinations that we know work really well together, and that we at Antioch can do really well, that we want to be known for, and that we want students to come ready and excited about this particular combination of ingredients. So the areas of strength that are already emerged or emerging are around sustainability, community engaged arts, global engagement, social innovation and entrepreneurialism. And I'm missing the fifth one. I can usually rattle it off the top of my head. Oh yeah, justice and community studies. Oh my gosh. So those are areas that cross divisions, that cross all the different assets on campus, that cross general education and cooperative experiences. And those are recipes that students can put all those together really well, and we can be proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also thinking about creating professional pathways so that students who want to go into the legal area broadly conceived can be thinking about how to design their major with a pre-law pathway in mind, a pre-health pathway, a pre-education pathway, and then also, and most institutions have some version of that. And I also think that we can be on the forefront of laying out what I'm currently thinking of as a preclinical pathway. So setting up students for successfully entering into graduate study in, say, social work, clinical psychology, and those sort of super in demand and super necessary professions at a moment where our nation is experiencing a mental health crisis, for instance, but where a lot of our students naturally want to find professions where they're directly helping folks in social services.
Mm-hmm.
So those are areas that I think we can do well with our size and our existing resources and build from there. There are places of pride, there are places of abundance. And a lot of what I'm doing is I'm just being a divining rod and reflecting back what we're already doing and doing well, but need to do together and own that and market that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be debuting some of these thoughts and overall parameters soon to the community, and inviting faculty to then pick up our shovels and start to build there.
Fantastic. One of the things I really appreciate is that the way that you speak of these things and the way that you offer up these thoughts, they're generative, right? They sort of beget other thoughts and energy and excitement. I think that's a gift that Jane has as well. that as she talks about Antioch, what Antioch is, and also what it has the potential to become, you tend to lean in, or I've noticed people leaning in and rekindling an excitement and an interest. So very, very happy to be able to witness that, and in whatever way to be a part of it. So we want to open this up and see what questions you have. So Jesse, you can put us back to the grid view so we can see what hands we have. I think the first one that I noticed was Joel. So why don't you go ahead with the first question?
Sure. First, welcome, Brian. I like what you said, and it sounds very exciting what the way you're moving. You mentioned co-op and your coordination with the co-op dean. So I thought I'd ask a question I've been thinking about, reflecting a little bit about Stephen's, point that when I went to school, went to Antioch, it was, of course, the best of all times. To be there, I felt. We had a quarterly system, and one of the big advantages of that, you would be on campus for a quarter or two, and then off campus for a quarter or two. And one of the advantages is that the co-op jobs that we had available to us were more available because one Antioch student on co-op could hand off to the next Antioch student on co-op just with a few days between quarters. It wasn't ideal. There was a lot of, felt like you never got a break. So there was pluses and minuses, but I think it was stronger for the school to have a system where some organization, maybe out in Washington or Boston, would have a job, and they knew they would have a steady supply of Antioch students coming quarter after quarter to take on certain responsibilities. So I just want to encourage you to look at that as along with the co-op dean, to consider that as something to re-examine again because of the pluses.
Thanks, Joel. And I will also just say generally, as I listen to alumni stories, irrespective of the generation, the memories and the experiences that stick, that are really part of people's narrative of how they came to be who they are. It's the co-op experiences. I'm an academically trained classroom faculty member, but those are the things that stick, and where all of the experiences and the learning that the students are experiencing this formative moment, that's where those aha moments happen and those transformative moments happen. It is true that Antioch has switched from the year-round quarterly system with a sort of 5-year arc to I wouldn't say a traditional academic calendar, but a calendar that fits a little bit better with other institutions' calendars, where it's 3 terms with 2 shorter experimental block periods, one at the end of summer and one between fall and the beginning of winter. So the rhythms have changed a little bit. And that's also, I'm still learning, but I do think this generation of students, especially the students who are that Antioch is attracting, which over 70% of them are eligible for federal Pell Grant, so that tells you something about the socioeconomic background, come in with a different set of plans for themselves and relationship to work and the connection to study. And so having fewer but equally meaningful dedicated co-op experiences remains important. And we're looking to better integrate under the language of meaningful work, the other workplace experiences that our students are doing anyway, because they are working campus-based jobs even during study terms, and wanting to make sure that that's also meaningful work experience that our students are integrating with their classes and their learning. And they're doing that in order to not just support themselves, but often to support families, or to pay for school in real time with a debt aversion of this generation. So we're expanding the overview, the purview of the Cooperative International Education Office to also be connected to meaningful work that's not credit bearing, that might be campus based during study terms too. So it's an expansion in a different kind of way. The other thing that's happening, and I'm really relying on Brooke as the Dean of Co-op, who's fantastic, is we have to rekindle some of these high quality partnerships that you're talking about, Joel, after COVID, where not only because of our small scale, but because of the health and safety restrictions of COVID, folks couldn't go out and travel internationally, or even travel to some of our best co-ops in other areas. And so we had to sort of manufacture some high quality co-op-like experiences on campus, and we're really proud of those. But I'm really pushing and encouraging the co-op faculty to use this as an opportunity to recommit to the way that we send our students out into the world, recommit to our best partners that have the highest quality experience that we know are good for our students, and also re-energize some of those partnerships. It's hard at the small scale that Antioch currently is to maintain a huge Rolodex for precisely the reason that you said, that we might not have a steady stream of X number of students every term. So this is an opportunity to be really thoughtful about what we expect of and from our partners. So I'm paying close attention to that.
Joan, I think you are next.
Yes, I don't have a question so much as a suggestion.
Please.
I have been worried, as many people have been, about the presentation of the self-design major. And it seems to me that to parents and to prospective students, it looks like it focuses on what we don't do. So we don't have traditional majors, and people worry about that. And instead, they see a blank. They're going to design their own major. I really think we should be presenting both standard and creative degree paths in our literature so that people can picture themselves going through the academic program, so that people would see, instead of the words self-designed major, these are some of the majors that are possible, and these are some of the majors that have been created by our smart students. So that's what I think we should be featuring, rather than the words self-designed major, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, I worry about the same thing. That's why I was thinking about ways to move the campus and the way we talk about our academic offerings from self-designed degrees as the absence of something. And at the same time, I want to push us and be careful not to try to mimic in a thin and less good way what other larger institutions are doing. But instead,
yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
That's why I suggest that we had both standardized majors that we could display and creative majors that students have developed, so that people can see that there's a range.
Yes, and so I'm not using the language of major because those tend to be a little more structured and
Pathways.
yeah. So I'm using focus and pathways, but absolutely we need to define the focuses and the pathways that we know work well, that we do well, that set our students up well for success, and that we are proud of. Not because they're thin versions of elsewhere, but because they're full versions of the things we know that we can do and do well. It will be, I think, by necessity, a smallish list. I don't think we can try to be everything to everybody. But the higher ed market is a very large market. And while we want to be on everyone's radar, we ultimately only need to be a good match for 300 students now, maybe more than that in the near future. So I think the path for small colleges and the strategy for small colleges is to be distinctive, not to be a thin reflection of elsewhere. And so that's what I'm listening for. What are those focuses that we know we can do well? And what are those professional pathways that we know our students want to be on, and that we know a place like Antioch with the co-op program and our ability to help students make connections across areas of knowledge, set them up really well for success. I'll give you one example that as I've been learning student stories too. We had a recent student who just entered graduate school in one of the nation's top social work programs. We do not have a traditional BSW, a bachelor's degree in social work, and some of the student's courses might not have been the specific transcript courses that program would have usually expected for the folks they invited into their program. But instead, she leapfrogged over her competition because she had co-ops where she had high quality and prolonged experience that you don't usually see until your second year of graduate school. She had innovative courses with relevant content, but also a particularly mature ability to talk about the integrative learning and the connections across them. So there's a way in which Antioch can prepare folks for professional pathways, if we get it right, better than the sort of traditional list of disciplines that high school students might be looking for. But if we can, on our website and elsewhere, in a succinct and compelling manner, describe what we do well, I think we can be successful. I'm going to challenge my colleagues that as we try to build this or move toward a shared academic vision, what I'm going to keep saying is, can it fit on a placemat? If you need if you need to corner me for 30 minutes to describe to me the curriculum we've lost. Can it fit on a placemat?
I look forward to seeing it on the website.
Yes, a placemat-sized computer screen.
Right.
There you go. Okay, so we got 3 questions in queue. We'll go Karen, then Robert, and then Bob.
So Brian, eager to welcome you to the Antioch community. And I like hearing all of what you have said. I am particularly, one thing about me is that I really didn't pay any attention to Antioch until about 20 years after I graduated. And then it's just become part of who I am. And I have been involved with Antioch ever since. But I'm particularly curious how you think that alumni are going to be able to support you and the college in general. I have been on and off the alumni board for decades now, and I constantly think of ways that former students can help future alums understand their role in Antioch. Earlier today, there was a session with Brooke about co-op and how co-op today is different than it was when I was at Antioch. It has a very definite academic element to it now. And but there are so many ways that alums can help co-op students, either by providing jobs or providing housing for low-paying jobs and so forth. So I'm just really curious to hear from you how you think that alums can help you and current students.
Yeah, it's such an excellent question, and Antioch exists today because of alumni. So there's a sort of starting point that people need to understand as we think about the future of alumni engagement. And traditionally, people think about alumni time, alumni talent, and alumni treasure, otherwise known as money. but also testimony and ties are the two that I think some institutions forget about. And my read is we need those first three. Absolutely, we need those first three, including resources. But testimony and ties are so strategically important. Testimony in terms of, it was easy for Antioch to make the headlines in 2008. And that narrative has a long tail and it sticks. It is less easy to get back onto people's radar, that not only are we open, but that we have a really robust future and we're going places. I think with things like bringing Jane in as president, that gets people's attention, and that's a really wonderful moment. But just the way that people talk about Antioch in their communities, on social media, has such an echo effect. And it's so important to testify on behalf of Antioch in positive ways, especially as parents or people with college age or college going kids can hear that. So the testimony is so important, and being really conscious and looking for opportunities to tell and advocate and be a zealous advocate of Antioch. And the other part is ties. As you were just saying, I am so impressed at the maturity with which Antioch continues to find ways to engage alumni in the cooperative education program. That is gold. That is what other institutions are striving for. And Antioch figured out how to do that decades ago. And that's one of the things that persisted in the reopening of Antioch. So when Brooke comes calling, answer the phone. That would be, or if one of Brooke's co-op colleagues comes calling, answer the phone. And we're also looking for ways as we build out the apparatus of meaningful work, as I was saying. We're also looking to create more opportunities for community-based learning. So shorter time periods to invite folks to campus for high quality learning, maybe, spending a week or two on the sustainable farm and learning about sustainable farm practice and experience what it means to be in a community organized around that. Or inviting folks back during the JA or ND blocks, not to offer credit-bearing courses to our students. I think we've got that, but to bring their knowledge and help us share it with other folks who might want to come to Antioch for shorter periods, for the kind of special knowledge that our alumni who have gone off into the world and change things could then bring that back to campus. So those are the testimony and ties pieces that I want to make sure are on your mind, in addition to the traditional answers of, we need resources, and alumni got this place reopened, and we need alumni to help sustain it as well.
Robert.
Yes, thank you. Brian, I'm impressed. You're a fast learner.
Trying.
You sound like you've been at Antioch for years. Critical to Antioch's success long-term is enrollment, which is an issue.
Yes.
Yes. And speaking with Shane in admissions, he's mentioned that one area where students, people that are interested in Antioch have mentioned their want to major is in management. And historically, Antioch hasn't had such a program. However, effectively, starting this fall is the SEI program, the Social Enterprise.
Yes, good. I'm glad you know about that one.
Yeah, I do know about it. I helped fund it.
Oh, perfect. I'm so excited about it.
Well, I'm curious. Well, I have a constructive criticism of it in the sense that I don't want to get involved in micromanaging. You also mentioned professional pathways, and the SEI program is potential for a professional pathway, especially if combined with another major. What I'm getting at is if you, let me just deal with the issue of management. Management as a degree is sort of a vacuum in the sense that, yeah, you can, if you have a concentration in some area combined with management skills, then you become much more effective in that particular sector, whatever that might be. Further to the point is, assuming that, and this is where I'm going, assuming that the SEI program has traction in terms of attracting students via admissions and, of course, having enrollment in the program, it doesn't take much to go from the SEI program to a full management program. So you say to yourself, well, what does that entail? You can basically do that with one faculty member, excluding effectively replacing Kevin, who really is preferred history rather than doing a management program. Kevin has a master's in from Columbia, an MBA in Columbia in real estate finance. So with one additional faculty member and an adjunct to teach specific courses, you can have the SCI program and a full-blown management program, which effectively costs very little. It's nothing. Effectively costs nothing versus putting together a full-blown computer science or physics program, if you follow my point. The other point I want to make is I've spent most of my life living in Canada, and in Canadian universities, they have bachelors of commerce, which is basically a bachelor of commerce. Well, let me put it this way, since you have come from the humanities side. An MBA is nothing more than a bachelor of commerce for somebody who has a degree in something else. That's all it is. There's nothing special about it. I have a master's in finance, so I'm quite familiar with it. And what I've noticed in American schools is that reading an article, I once stumbled across which were the feeder schools for investment banking. There's more to management than just investment banking. But I wasn't interested in the university, I was interested in the colleges. And the colleges that were the major feeder lead colleges were Dartmouth, Amherst, Middlebury, and one in Maine. I think it was either Bates or Bowdoin. I forgot which one it is. Doesn't matter. The point is, they didn't have management programs. They had economic programs. So Antioch would be differentiating itself with a management program at the college level. I didn't look at the other universities, but that's basically my point that I figured I'd bring to your attention, and you can do with it as you see fit.
Yeah, I am grateful for that thinking, and I'll be thinking out loud for a second. So notice when I was describing the professional pathways, I didn't say pre-business. And partly I did that because I think that the social innovation and entrepreneurship can be a full version of what Antioch does really well, versus a thinner version of what folks do elsewhere. And I guess maybe I'm too traditional minded in my thinking on this, but every institution where I've worked has been a sort of liberal arts institution that's drifted into the professions and, over the decades, and has schools of businesses. And I've worked a lot with AACSB and the way in which that either constrains or drives how to build programs in that space. So it's not intuitive to me that we could do something with just one more person. And I'm looking for ways to be a full version of what we can do really well and distinctively. And I share your observation that if we get it right at a place like, I'm going to say Antioch first, and then I'll say Middlebury and Bates and Bowdoin, those folks can then excel if they choose to enter into graduate study in those areas. So I think one of our secret weapons is that because of the way we do co-op, and if we get it right with expanding meaningful work more broadly, we can provide our undergraduate students with actual experience in short-term time horizons with bringing ideas to fruition through an entrepreneurial or business model. So one of the things that happened a couple weeks ago is Kevin and Dean, who I gather you probably know, Kevin Magruder, Dean Snyder, political economist and historian with a business background, for those who don't know, who have really been driving the SEI focus. I invited them to have lunch with our director of the libraries, who is actively working on what's called the C Shop. And it's sort of a cluster of a cafe and a bookstore, and saying, can this be an entrepreneurial space where students have the opportunity to bring their ideas to reality in the space of a term? And that kind of real world experience, combined with the kind of coursework that would be captured by social innovation entrepreneurship, is going to be incredibly valuable and set folks up, I think, for success, both to enter the workforce and to consider advanced study, as you were describing. Where it grows from there, don't know, but I'm looking to build things that we can do now really well and then build onto it.
There lies my suggestion for expansion of the program, with very little investment in terms of, in this case, faculty, but no necessity for additional capital expenditure.
Okay, I want to make sure we get Bob in here.
I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Bob, you had a question?
Yeah. Hi, Brian. I love
Yeah.
what you've been saying, especially the reframing of issues as asset-based and going forward. It seems to me, I'm very sad looking at Antioch nowadays. I was originally a refugee to Antioch from a more traditional program. I had a horrible, horrible freshman year at Kenyon College, dropped out for 2 years, and then relocated myself to Antioch with great sense of relief. Loved my time there. I was one of the self-design majors in Asian studies, and I had a lot of support from faculty and from the co-op program in anthropology, history, and especially language. And what makes me sad is that looking at Antioch's academic offerings today, I couldn't do that at Antioch today.
Mm-hmm.
The other aspect of my career at Antioch was a discovery of computers, which I sort of diverted. I was able to get, with my Asian studies background, I was able to get a full fellowship to go to graduate school, which was great. And then I switched careers into software, and I've had a 40-year career in software, which I also could not have started today at Antioch, as far as I know. And so it seems to me that you need an emphasis, and maybe you already have it, but you need an emphasis on developing a virtuous cycle of development in both student population and faculty population, so that you can broaden your offerings, whether it be more traditional kitchen recipe type plans or freeform, self-designed with faculty guidance, which I benefited tremendously from. So that was my comment.
Yeah, and that really strikes a chord with me as well, as I try to be honest that we won't be able to be everything to everybody at the size that we are, and trying to make some proud, but maybe sometimes hard decisions to decide these are the things that we are going to do. This is where we're going to pull out our shovels and dig, and acknowledge that there's other areas and other paths that maybe we don't do as well, and that's not the kind of students who are going to find the right match at Antioch. And as we hit our stride and hopefully grow, not endlessly, but get to a more sustainable size, that's when you can start to fill in some additional things. But if we are always looking to grow, we forget to feed and water our taproot. And I'm trying to start there.
Thank you. So we wanted to make sure with our remaining time that we have Tristan with us, who's our new Director of Alumni Engagement. And
From Kenyon.
from Kenya. Just wanted to give the floor to Tristan, just say a little bit about himself and how he's envisioning we can all support the efforts of the college.
Thanks, Stephen.
Condolences about being from Kenya.
I was going to say, I'm sorry you had a bad time there.
Horrible time.
I think, well, for one, you know, the Kenyan of yore was not always the best place. So I'm happy to have gone in a more, a better time for Kenyan, a more progressive place than it used to be. I'll just say, I've just finished up my 8th week at Antioch, so I'm still learning the place, having so much fun getting to know everyone. There are so many incredible alumni, and I've barely scratched the surface. So one of my main goals has been to take the enthusiasm I've seen in alumni and find ways to create pathways for volunteerism, to the point that we can say, you're interested in volunteering, how much time do you have and what area are you interested in? And we will have programs already set up and ready for you. And so those programs will be launching soon, still working to make sure that we have them all set up to the way that we don't launch something that's terrible. Or that falls apart as soon as people start using it. We're working with co-op, we're working with admissions, we're working with all the chapters to make sure that we have something that appeals to everyone. And so if you have an interest in lending a hand, you can just raise that hand and we will point you in the right direction. I wanted to mention a couple things. One, when Brian was talking about those sort of 6 areas that we do really well at Antioch, he and I are working on some monthly faculty panels highlighting those areas and the faculty involved in those areas. So please stay tuned for that, because we'll have some ads coming out about that soon. We're really excited to get the new and current faculty members in front of you all so you can experience the type of people we work with daily. Today we had our first coffee with co-op event. So that's going to be right now twice a month on Thursday afternoons. The next one will be in 2 weeks from today. And that's just sort of open office hours with Brooke to get to know her, to get to know the co-op of today, and sort of peek under the hood of what's going on over there and how you can help. And I'll just say, lastly, I am looking into hosting a couple Zoom sessions a month of open office hours with me. So if you don't get tired of hearing me talk at these events, you can pop in and ask me those questions then, so we don't take time away from people like Brian, who you don't get to see as much. So that is my update.
Okay. So thank you, everyone, for coming. We're trying to, again, get the Greater Boston chapter up off the ground. We're looking forward to being able to have some in-person meetings. So I know, looking at this group, that folks are based all around the country, but if you are in the Greater Boston area or know people that could be involved, please send them our way. And just encouraging everybody to stay connected and stay involved in any way that you can. As I was sharing earlier, I've been encouraged and really intrigued by the kinds of conversation and thinking that's going on. And I always appreciate hearing from other Antiochians about their thoughts about how things could continue to move forward. So appreciate your time, appreciate your presence, and look forward to connecting in the near future. But thanks everyone for coming. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Stephen.
Thanks for sharing your stories.